Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a great day, and above all else, that you're indeed looking after yourselves and one another. Before I get into the topic of what we hope to be another insightful, entertaining, fun episode, and it is going to be fun, damn it. I want to welcome back to the channel, Mr. Ken Cheshire. How's it going, Ken?
It's going great, Armando. Good to be back.
Good to have you back. And Sagosh, how you doing, Sagosh?
Doing great, Amanda.
That's good. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why we've convened here today is to discuss anniversaries, in particular, 50th anniversaries. So, we have a two-parter for you today. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be split up into two parts because we have a lot of albums to talk about. We are looking at albums that are celebrating their anniversaries, their 50th anniversary, sorry, for the month of November. And we got a hell of a list for you. Ready to go? Here we go. All right. Now, be because we have the eight albums, we've decided to split this up into two segments to make it easier for us to handle and for you to handle. All right. Looking at my list, the first album on our list, released in November of 1975, we have Mike Oldfield with his third release, Omadon. Recorded from January to September of 1975, released through Virgin Records with a total playing time of 36 minutes and 15 seconds, listed as prog rock and new age, produced by Mike Oldfield. Now, there was a non album single released called Il Duce Giubilo as the A side and On Horseback as the B side. This album continues the tradition that Mike Oldfield would have throughout his 70s output, where it was one composition split into two parts. Okay. Now, before I give my opinion on this release, Ken, what is your view?
Omadon, more like Oma Yawn for me. Um,
Ooh,
I
hit.
it's okay. Um, I can see the creativity in the composition. I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me. There's obviously there's some wonderful musicianship going on here. But the music just didn't reach out and grab me. Um, I think possibly I would might listen to this album the same way some people would listen to, and we've talked about this before, ambient music, just in the background. But I would not see myself sitting and actually listening to it, focusing on listening to it. Um, I like my old field in smaller doses, I guess. So yeah, I don't hate it, but it's just kind of there.
Okay. Okay. Um, I should mention that Michael Field did release a sequel in 2017 called Return to Omadon, which I have both albums. I failed to mention that. My apologies. All right, Sagosh, what is your view on Omadon?
I quite liked it. I'm not hugely familiar with Mike Oldfield's work. I've just heard Tubular Bells and I think maybe a couple of the singles from the 80s, Moonlight Shadow and stuff, uh, which of course is very different from his prog instrumental output. But Tubular Bells, of course, is very, very enjoyable. And this is, I thought, pretty much in the same vein. I mean, it's perhaps lacks as powerful an opening as Tubular Bells that, the initial theme that Tubular Bells starts off with has over the years become a recognized classic. And, it's
Yeah.
hard to get out of your head. There is probably nothing that immediate over here, but at the same time, musically, I find it quite engaging. The the melodic themes that he explores are are quite nice. And I like the way it sort of transitions very seamlessly from, one form of instrumentation to another. Like just goes from synth-driven passages to acoustic guitar to violin pipes, and then back to some electric guitar solos. And it's all very seamless and very beautifully edited and well produced. Uh, I find the sound quite enjoyable, and particularly on side B, the
Mhm.
on horseback section. There's a lot of folk influence, and you have Paddy Maloney of the Chieftains, I believe, playing uilleann pipes, and
Yeah.
that entire section felt very pastoral, very it gives you the feel of maybe the English countryside, a very rural, very idyllic kind of setting, and the melodies reflect that, and it's particularly pleasurable to listen to. The on horseback vocal section is, I think, what Mike Oldfield probably reserves as a few minutes of goofiness on all his records. But it's fun in its own way. It's a little bonzo band style.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gives me that kind of feel, and it's kind of cute. But overall, the album is nice. I found it melodically engaging enough. I mean, I get how it would sound like background music, but to me, it was, not that, shall we say, lacking in character that it sort of fades away into the back and you don't notice anything. It's in between. It's probably not as great as Tubular Bells, but it's nice.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Okay. Well, for me, I did like it. I agree with Sagosh. Um, I d- I do find there is more dynamics in on Tubular Bells in terms of the different sections and the different just different changes in time signature, etc. Uh, but I mean, he wasn't looking to make Tubular Bells again. He was trying to remove himself as far away from Tubular Bells as possible, as he could. Um, and unfortunately, he was going to be saddled with the comparison to Tubular Bells no matter what he did. But I do like it. I do feel that on horseback, on part two, I kind of feel that that's kind of like tacked on at the like as like an afterthought kind of thing. As a piece, I don't know, like because part two ends and then there's a bit of a gap and then horseback starts. So it
Mhm.
kind of feels like it was like put on at the at the last minute in terms of when they went to mix it, put it together. So, but it's okay. I mean, it is corny in terms of the lyrics and stuff, but it's all right. I mean, it's a good album. It's a good album. I can see, putting this album on and just doing your chores around the house kind of thing, and just sort of keeping yourself entertained that way. But you know, I, you got to remember too, this was released at a time where artists were signed to deals where they had to release an album a year and sometimes two albums a year. So trying to come up with ideas and releasing them, it's just like, the pressure must have been insurmountable for him, or what he felt was insurmountable, to come up with more ideas. But it is a good album. It is a good album. And I would recommend listening to Return to Omadon, you know, for
Okay.
for people out there who are interested in this album. But no, it is a good album. It is a good album. Next one on the list, we have the band Northern Lights, Southern Cross, released on November 1st, 1975, recorded from the spring to the summer of 1975, released on Capitol Records, produced by the band, with a total playing time of 40 minutes and 40 seconds. With the one track that I know from this album, Ophelia, or that I remember from this album. Ken, your view?
Um, okay. Confession time.
Yes.
I missed this off the schedule. So skip me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Somehow I missed it.
Okay, one strike. Go.
No, no.
Okay. Okay. Sagosh.
This album is a bit of a mixed bag. I think the band were going through a lot of stuff throughout the 70s. I mean, they had a great start with the first two albums, which are universally recognized classics, and
Hmm.
then Stage Fright, which is a very strong follow up. Uh, Cahoots had its moments, but started losing a plot a little bit. And then after that, they had 4 years of just a little bit of this and that. Moondog Matinee was a lot of covers and things, didn't really inspire any confidence. And then, of course, in '75 they had the basement tapes, but that was, archival material, nothing really new. So Northern Lights was the first time in about 4 years that they really put out some, original material. And it has been criticized for being a little bit less cohesive and felt like the band were not really, in it together. And it's been called more of a Robertson project,
Yeah.
which I suppose is fair. I mean, songwriting credits wise, I believe everything is given to Robbie.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a mixed bag. There are some really fantastic moments on it. Ophelia is, I think, the most
Well
song
known.
most people are familiar with. But
Yeah.
the two songs that resonate the most with me here are both, in my opinion, out and out band classics that belong up there with Dixie and The Weight and all those. I'm talking about It Makes No Difference and Acadian Driftwood. Both
Yeah.
amazing songs that are just dripping with the kind of harmonies and emotions that you associate and expect with the band. These are songs that really, really stand out. The rest of them are okay. They're not bad. They're decent. There are a few new ideas coming up, particularly from Garth Hudson. His use of keyboards and synthesizers is a little bit unique on this one. It's not a sound that we've heard previously from the band, which is again fair enough because from 71 to 75 is a big leap in terms of what you have available to you
Yeah.
as far as synthesizers go.
Definitely. Yeah.
The Garth was tinkering around with all the new stuff. So yeah, that lends itself to some interesting sounds, like on Jupiter Hollow, which has some pretty cool effects and things. The harmonies are perhaps not as tight and as you know otherworldly as we've come to expect, especially from the first two or three albums. They don't sound as much together and in it on this one as we would have hoped for. But overall, I think it's still a good album, an important album in their career, and probably marks the last time they made anything worth serious value. Because again, the last album from this period, Islands, that came up, I think, in '76, was fairly weak and more of a contractual obligation. And after that, of course, they just did the last waltz and split up. So from this phase of their career, I think it stands as the last album that you really should be looking at in any terms. For that reason, I think it's a worthwhile addition to the canon. But at the same time, it's clearly their weakest album of original material,
Okay.
Hmm.
apart from Islands, of course.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Well, the only track on this album for me that I recognize is Ophelia. And I do think that at this point, I mean, first of all, the musicianship is wonderful. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I'm just saying that I feel that I could sort of see the wheels coming off the car kind of thing at this point in terms of the cohesiveness of the band. No pun intended, of the group, sorry. The fact that Robbie Robertson is credited for writing all the songs. I think maybe that if he sang on the album as well, it would make it more stronger for me. I don't know, like it just there just seems to be something missing for me with this album. And there were interpersonal conflicts going on in the band. I mean, and then the following year they would have the last waltz, the major show at the Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco, and the big show, the big uh, tour show, sorry, which is fantastic. If you guys haven't watched the last waltz, you really need to. It's amazing. But I think that for this album, the only song that stands out for me is Ophelia. So, yeah, with Levon Helm on lead vocals. Um, but yeah, I could see something's going on here with this album. If you look back at the other one, the albums previous to this, there is something missing. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, our next album is a beauty. We have Joni Mitchell with The Hissing of Summer Lawns, released on November 8th, 1975, recorded in 1975, released on Asylum Records, produced by Joni Mitchell, with a total playing time of 42 minutes and 34 seconds. Now, this is where Joni Mitchell basically went into her jazz phase, starting into going into her jazz phase, leading off with the track In France They Kiss on Main Street. But before I give my opinion, Ken,
Okay. This was basically my intro to Joni Mitchell, 1975, um, high school years. Um, and I'm not really quite sure where I discovered this album because as 50 years ago, I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. But um,
good Lord. Okay.
this album, this album, even if you didn't look at the liner notes, you could tell she loaded up with musicians on this album.
Yeah.
And I don't mean in quantity but quality. Um, and so this is really the beginning the phase of Joni Mitchell that I'm most familiar with, and this is just a monster of an album. Um, I as someone that studied music, my ears tend to pay attention to a lot of the songwriting, the chordal progressions. I can really feel listening to the entire album these particular repeated, um, unusual chord progressions that to me just came to identify Joni Mitchell during this period. That's not bad, um, but still, the songs. There's only one song on here that I would skip, which would be the Jungle Line, just because it's mostly just percussion and to me there's just not that much going on other than that. But the single In France They Kiss on Main Street, within my circles, is probably one of her best known songs, rightfully so. I think it works really, really well as far as being easily accessible to non-Joni or and non-jazz fans. The thing about it is that I don't. Whereas her melodies and the way she sings her melodies are very creative and very unique, I don't find myself um, singing along or humming it after I've listened to it. To me, it just doesn't lend itself to that.
Okay.
So it doesn't stick in my brain long after I've listened to it.
Mhm.
Um, but as far as the lineup of songs, it's very solid, very, very solid. Um, Harry's House and Shadows and Light. I like Shadows and Light, but the way they use the synthesizer in there just seems a little bit odd to me. I wish they'd use an instrument like maybe a cello, something a little bit more organic than that
Okay.
electronic sound because of the incredible vocals. But yeah, this is like I said, this is a monster album, and as far as it's probably one of the first albums that comes to mind when I hear or see the name Joni Mitchell. So yeah, 75 was November 75 was a good year for her.
hmm Well, that's the fact that this album comes to mind when someone says her name to you. That that makes a statement in and of itself about the impact of this album
Well,
for
and
you.
yeah, and the way my brain works, a lot of times, um, the ones that stick in my mind, most for a lot of artists, my favorite album of theirs, when I like an artist and a lot of their catalog, um, will usually be my intro into it. Whereas,
Yeah.
say for instance, say Tears for Fears.
hmm
Whereas I don't feel that The Hurting is their best album, is the one that sticks in my mind first because that was my first,
I get it. Yeah. Of
you
course.
know,
Of
and
course. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
and who knows how my brain works. So, but it just does. But no, but regardless of this being my intro to Joni, it is a incredibly solid, great album.
hmm Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Sagosh, review.
So I think around the time I heard this, I had some preconceived notions or whatever I'd read about and understood that the general wisdom was this is where Johnny Mitchell really went fully experimental and tried out new stuff and took bold steps and stuff like that. And I think at the time when I first heard it, it did feel like that. Maybe because one of my uh, more stronger memories of this album was hearing something like the Jungle Line because it's it's such an unusual song. It really, I mean, you may not like it, but you remember it. It's that kind of song. So, and if your enduring memory of the album is based around that song, you tend to think, yeah, this is where she really went far out.
Okay.
But I took a listen to it again for this session, and I find that for the most part, with the exclusion of Jungle Line, which is definitely an experiment, uh, and I would say a partially successful one. She definitely asked some questions there. It's a challenge. It's something that's thrown up to the listener. Can you handle this? But at the same time, musically, it's probably not that engaging. There is a little bit of dissonance happening between the instrumentation and the vocal lines. It reminds me in some ways, although of course that came a couple of years later, of the second track on David Bowie's Lodger called African Night Flight. That
Hmm.
has a sort of similar odd phrasing and
Okay. Okay.
weird percussions and dissonance, unrelated vocal passages going in and out. Like mentally, I sort of club them together. Uh, I have no idea whether there is any relation to them between the songs as such. But yeah, I mean, coming back to the rest of the album, when I listened to it again this time, I found a lot of it is honestly just maybe Gordon Spark dialed up a little bit. I don't find it that difficult to listen to. I came in expecting to find, like my memories of it was, oh wow, this is like a really complicated album and stuff. But when I went back to listen to it, it didn't hit me that hard. It felt like, yeah, it felt like a logical step ahead of Gordon Spark, maybe a companion album. Uh, Definitely, it indicated that she was going off in other directions. She was progressing, and I think that is something that was at this point a given with Joni Mitchell. throughout the 70s, she was always progressing album by album. I don't think she ever sort of repeated a formula or an aesthetic across albums. There was always
Mm,
something new, something more challenging, more sophisticated. And I think this album carries on that tradition.
Okay.
Song-wise, yes, Franz Kiss on Main Street is a terrific opener. Really sets up the mood. Uh, Another favorite of mine is "Don't Interrupt the Sorrow," which is again,
mhm,
rhythmically it's
Yeah.
built in a sort of similar vein, and it's the one song that stands out to me in terms of catchiness. It sticks in the mind a little bit. And Shadows and Light, of course, because of the starkness of it. And, after many years, I think
Yeah.
the last time Joni did an a cappella song was in '69 with the fiddle and the drum, and that was
mhm,
completely stark, just one voice, nothing else. So Shadows
mhm,
and Light feels like a step ahead of that, where you've got those gorgeous harmonies coming in, and a little bit of instrumentation here and there, and of course the lyrical concept is fabulous and
mhm,
goes so well with the melody. The rest of the album is also very sophisticated. The musicianship is astounding. Uh, by this point, you come to expect that. Even in Corton's Park, she had surrounded herself with some fantastic musicians, with Tom Scott, the Express. This album is, I think, going forward from here on, all her albums would have some stellar musicians. So that pretty much became par for the course. The sound is excellent. The songwriting is fabulous. It's definitely a highlight of Joni's career. And
mhm.
to me, this and maybe Hejaira is the point where I sort of dropped off. Like after Hejaira, I couldn't really get into her albums much till say the early '90s when she sort of tried to rediscover her folk rock aesthetic.
Mhm.
The in between albums didn't really do much for me. But yeah, this little two album phase of Samalons and Ajira set themselves apart slightly from the rest of her 70s output. And yeah, they stand alone as a separate mini era, so to speak, before she went off into really experimental stuff. It's a worthwhile album.
Okay. All right. No, good. Thank you, Sagosh. Well, for me, um, big surprise. At one point, I went on a Joni Mitchell buying kick. So I bought a bunch of her albums. I bought, when I got into Hajira, I'm like, I bought this and Court and Spark and Don Juan's Reckless Daughter and all that kind of stuff. For me, this is a good album. The description of it as being avant pop, when I did my research for it, it does fit. I do think that this album starts a new phase in her career. I think Court and Spark ends one phase for her, her folk pop kind of phase, and then this goes, Hissing of Summer Lawns goes into her more jazz oriented phase, a more experimental. And Frantic Kiss on Main Street, classic. You know, I like the Jungle Line for its rhythmic bass. In terms of and like just a very rhythmic track, just very different. Uh, Other songs like Edith and the Kingpin, Don't Interrupt the Sorrow, they're all great. Shades of Scarlet Conquering. I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, what the hell is going through her head? Like, what are her thought processes at this point in time, in terms of her song structure and her ability to come up with just different chord progressions and just different melodies and just a different palette to work with. This is to me miles above Court and Spark in terms of what she wanted to do musically. Not that Court and Spark is bad. I'm not saying that. Court and Spark is not bad at all. I'm just saying that this album, Hissing of Summer Lawns, to me, it's just a different beast altogether. It is a good album. I can understand some people maybe not getting it on the first listen or not getting into it on the first listen, but you need a few listens to sit and
Sure.
understand and appreciate it. This is listed as Prince's favorite album. Uh, he was a Prince was a major Joni Mitchell fan. He loved Joni Mitchell, and he said that she used a lot of colors in her music, which is how he described it. As an introduction, this would be this in terms of a jazz phase. This would be the second album I would recommend. The first would be Hajira, but this is a very good album, and this for me, this should be if you're a Joni Mitchell fan, this should be in your record collection. If you're just starting out, get this album to listen to it. Again, you may not understand it the first time around, but stick with it and you'll pick it you'll get into it eventually. It'll hit you. And when it does, it'll hit you like a ton of bricks. I'm telling you, you know. I think at this I'm just going to say also, I think at this point in time, she was done with the hit singles. She was done with trying to appease and please David Geffen in Asylum. She was going to do what she wanted to do, when she wanted to do it, how she wanted to do it. She didn't care if it was a hit single. Obviously, you know, obviously she cared to an extent, but not when not as compared to when she first started out. This album was for her. This was an album for her to do for herself. And if people liked it, great. If not, there was always the next one, you know? But I think that if you, how can I put this? If you want an album of different colors and shades and different moods, this album is for you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving on to the final album in part one of our album celebrating the 50th anniversary. Oh boy. Uh, and we have here for our last album for part one, Patti Smith, Horses. Thank you, Ken. I saw that. Released on November 10th, 1975. Recorded from September 2nd to the 18th, 1975. Produced by John Cale. Released through Arista Records. Playing time of 43 minutes and 10 seconds. Ken, your opinion?
Well, I think first of all, my first thought was the connection between this and Velvet Underground is unmistakable. Um, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, I really do like the band um, and the instrumentation on this album. Um, Even though the songs aren't particularly complex, they're basically, the three chord, maybe a four chord songs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the musicians do an excellent job on this album. I really enjoyed that. I just wish there'd have been a different vocalist. Um, it's the punk sensibility of Smith's vocals just don't do anything for me. I like the way they incorporated Van Morrison into the opening track, and going into that pop classic of Gloria
Yeah.
of the band Them. And but it's like the music starts, it's like, hey, I kind of like this. And then you get a little bit of a jolt when her vocals, come in.
Yeah.
Because to me it just doesn't seem to fit.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. I've never been a Patti Smith fan. Um, uh, I don't hate it. It's just kind of that punk vocal aesthetic just doesn't do anything for me. But honestly, when I try to tune that out and listen to what the band underneath is doing, I think they do a quite good job. I mean, the album is very well produced. It's just the vocals don't do anything for me, and because of that, um, I find it difficult to really listen to the lyrics to get an opinion on what the lyrics are doing,
Yeah.
which is probably, a flaw, but like I said, I don't know how my brain works, but it does. So for what it is, I can see the widespread love. I mean, there's a special edition coming out very soon,
There is.
maybe even
Okay.
maybe
Okay.
even out by the time this airs. I don't know. I've seen it on many different import lists, but so yeah, this and it's very 1975. It's very mid 70s, and if you like it, grab it. It's worth listening to decide whether it's your thing or not. It's just not mine.
Okay. Okay. So, Ghosh, your view on horses.
I have over the years been something of a Patti Smith fan, and I started with this album. I must have been 18 or 19 for the first. Uh, at that time, I was probably a little more forgiving of vocal aesthetics that did not, match my wavelengths. Maybe, just maybe, if I'd heard it for the first time now, maybe I would not have resonated. But I concede that as a possibility because I'm a lot less patient with uh, difficult vocalists at my age.
That's
But
one way
yeah,
to
when
put
I
it.
first heard it, it definitely had some kind of impact. Uh, One thing I do remember is back in the 90s, I was buying a lot of these like secondhand magazines off the streets. We didn't get much by way of music writing in India, so we just would look around for these old English or American magazines that you find sometimes on the streets. And I remember picking up a lot of Q magazines, and there was this one
Yeah,
edition where they had a feature on the record that changed your life. They asked about 100 different musicians to talk about the record that changed their lives. And I remember reading about Michael Stipe, and he said something like, "The first time I heard horses, it felt like a grand piano landed on my
I can get that, but not in a good way. Okay, go on.
I'm sure Stipe meant it in a good way. But then, hey, Stipe also said the Beatles were elevator music in my time, so should we be crediting him with too much taste?
Okay.
well,
But yeah, I mean, I get that. That's a very appropriate statement to make about this album. It's definitely one of those that you either get it or you don't. At the time, I got it. I listened to a lot of Patti Smith's set, but admittedly, not so much horses because her the rest of the song is slightly toned down. Horses is where she just lets it rip. She just gives it everything. It's
Hmm.
very raw, very stream of consciousness, very free form. Especially, it's a sort of balanced in that sense because there are the sort of concise, accessible pop songs. You have Redondo Beach or Kimberly, uh, Free Money. Those are pretty good straight ahead rock tracks for that period. But then you have stuff like Gloria, you have Land and Birdland, all very, very, looping chord structure and very free-form stream of consciousness lyrics. It's like she's just speaking what's on her mind at that point of time. It feels like something that, just captures that moment and probably couldn't be done again. That's the feel I get for most of this album. In that sense, I compare it a little bit to Van Morrison's Astral Weeks, in the sense
Hmm.
that they both had long careers of fairly good music, but those particular albums stand out as something that could probably not be repeated. I feel the same about Horses. It's a very unique. moment in an artist's career where they're able to produce something that is very sort of unfettered. It didn't seem like she gave a hoot about anybody.
No.
And let's not, look away from what could perhaps be one of the most iconic opening lines of any album: Jesus died for somebody's sins, but not mine. That
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
open your debut
Yeah.
album with an
That's
artist who probably is not, you know, tailored for the mainstream audience in any case, is
yeah,
not
that
likely to win any popularity contests. And then you
no.
start your album off with a line like that. It speaks of courage, and it speaks of a devil may care attitude. I'm just here to speak my mind, and
Oh,
that's
she
that's
did all
very
right.
punk. That's very punk in its aesthetic,
Yeah,
but it's not unlike a lot of punk. It wasn't all about you know tearing everything down and throwing it all away and everything sucks and you suck and I'm the greatest or whatever it is. We are here to overthrow everything. That is the classic punk aesthetic. Uh, I don't think Patti Smith was about that. She wasn't here to overthrow anything, but she was just like, this is me. You probably haven't heard something like this. So, here it is served on a platter. This is, something different that you should challenge yourself with. That's the, vibe I get from this album. She was so out there, and it's really something that can't be captured again. I doubt she could go back to the studio and do something like this ever again, and she didn't. I mean, uh, the follow-up albums, Radio Ethiopia, Easter, with the Patti Smith group, they were all good, but they were more concise, well-produced, you know, well-packaged rock albums with
yeah.
a little bit of that punk edginess, but a lot of it had been smoothed out. This album just it was just like they let her loose. They just let her do whatever. I think John Cale probably had a lot to do with it. He's been there. He's seen it all. I mean, he was there on the first Velvet Underground album. So, I mean, what more credential can you ask for? That's the guy you want to go with if you're this very free-form, expressive artist. And I thought that was an inspired choice to have John Cale as a producer.
Hmm.
It's it's a very unique album. I accept that it's not for everybody, but if it hits you in a way that no other album in her discography, or indeed from that whole movement, can.
Yeah.
I place this very much alongside albums like Television's Marquee Mode, which is well a lot more accessible but unique in the sense that they contain a bit of that punk aesthetic, but it's not archetypal, it's not stereotypical, it's something very unique to their own persona. And in that sense, they are true punks because they may be part of the overall aesthetic, but they are not conforming to any standard. They're setting their own.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Sagosh. How can I put this? This is not a no. I'm not gonna go there. I think this album deserves a bit more respect than that. Not much, but a bit more. Um, yeah. This album for me was difficult to listen to. The music was good. Musicianship on this album was good. It's great actually. It's the vocals and it's that angry, acerbic punk sensibility that comes through that is hard for me to digest sonically. Um, this is not, because the night. This is not, that, era of Patti Smith. Um, she was to me she was out to shock people with this album with her lyrics. This is almost like the music was done first and the lyrics were done, the poetry was done after, kind of situation. This is my feeling of it. She was not looking for a hit. She was not looking for chart credibility or credibility within the mainstream pop or rock realm. She was just looking for an outlet for her poetry and her anger and
Mhm.
her views on the world and on society. This is a difficult album for me to listen to. It is. I remember seeing footage of Patti Smith during the Bob Dylan documentary, The Rolling Thunder Review. And all I kept thinking was, when have you last taken a bath? I'm sorry. I mean, it's just, you know, when have you last washed your hair? Do you know what I'm trying? It's just like, come on. Um, yeah, it's hard to listen to this album. Musically, it's good. Musically, it's good. John Cale on production, he did an amazing job.
Yeah.
I think that vocally, it's very hard to sit through. Uh, I can't. I did it for this for the video for the show, but I can't in good conscience say that I will go back and listen to this album because I won't. I won't. It doesn't work for me. You know, her version of In Excelsis Deo and Gloria, with notwithstanding, even that was a stretch for me to do. But I couldn't. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I'll even go and say I won't do it. I won't.
Yeah.
I just won't do it. I won't do it. I'm sorry. It's
Sure.
no. That song Rehab from Amy Winehouse. They try to make me go
Yes.
to rehab, and I say no,
Nope.
no,
Nope.
no,
Nope.
no, no, no. For this album, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Sure.
So, um, all right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Part one of album celebrating the 50th anniversaries for the month of November 1975. I want to thank Sagosh and Ken for joining me on this interesting episode, part one. And we will be back with part two of album celebrating the 50th anniversaries. Will it get better from here? Stay tuned and find out. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, please click like and subscribe and do hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content we got coming up. I've got more shows coming up with these fun gentlemen, and I've got shows coming up with Jim Bricker. He's coming on back on the channel with his son John Michael with an episode of Now Hear This. Oh boy. And we're also doing episodes with Ken and Jim on Is This a Masterpiece? More shows coming up. And regarding Is This a Masterpiece? We are taking a look at The Stranger from Billy Joel. Is it a masterpiece? Tune in to find out. Okay? So for Sagosh and Ken, I'm Armando signing off. And we'll see you soon on the Music Den. Bye for now.